What is up, FasCats? I hope your training is going well. Happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday here in Boulder, Colorado. It's a sunny fall day. And today on the podcast, we have Coach Isaiah Newkirk in the house, and we are talking about what is coaching and how does it work. And when we, as coaches, describe what we do for a living to our non cycling friends, the way I like to describe it is we tell and we do and we tell athletes three things. We tell them what to do, and then we analyze their data to let them know if they're doing it right, plus improving. And then we tell them what to do next based on our experience in the sports science and of course, the athlete's feedback. And this is modern day online coaching. And really, if I had to boil it down, it's three things: it's train, improve, next. But you may be thinking, how does that actually work and what it's like to be a coached athlete day to day? What's our process? What's our methodology? So we have Coach Isaiah in the house because he is our director of coaching, and he's going to help us break it down for you all. How's it going, Isaiah?
It's good. It's good. I'm excited to talk about this. It's like the thing we do on the daily, obviously, but also something that we work with all of our coaches on perfecting and expanding. And yeah, I mean, it's like a good refresher to dive in and maybe even remind ourselves the inner workings. And I think the process of the coach athlete relationship, and then just also what it entails, is so important, and it can take time. And I also think it's good for athletes to hear like what they can expect of those relationships, and because it's not always what people do expect. So I think this would be good to hash out.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for being here.
Mhm.
I'm psyched.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned something at the end. Athletes aren't really sure what to expect, and I think we were explaining in our team meeting yesterday. Really, we want to kind of lay it out how we do it over here in a professional sense, and kind of set the bar really nice and high, and just share that with you all, the listeners.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, you've been working on this for a really long time, and it's progressed over the years of like how do we provide the best possible service for our athletes? How do we navigate starting new relationships? Because that's what a lot of this is. Like, sure, yeah, there's a lot of science added in. There's high level knowledge being applied, but at the end of the day, like it's a lot of it is step one, getting to know the athlete, and then setting the groundwork and working off of it. And it's all just massive stepping stones. Yeah. So, but I guess we'll get to all that. So I won't jump the gun.
Listeners, what Isaiah is talking about is the beloved coach athlete relationship. And no, we're not talking about Facebook official or swiping right. We're talking about a professional relationship, a working relationship that we know things about you, you know things about us, we're engaged, and we know your goals, we know your strengths, your limitations, you know how we like to work and communicate and what we're going to deliver. And that is the coach athlete relationship. So, yeah, nothing. It's all platonic over here. We're not, yeah, but it's very, very important. That's the foundation of a good, we'll say, a good working relationship. We call it the coach athlete relationship. So, what we'd like to do is start from the beginning of the order of events that as they happen. If you were to hire a coach or hire a FasCat coach, and specifically, so I'm going to run through these as like an outline form, and then we're going to switch back and dive deeper into each one. So the coach athlete relationship begins with a new athlete questionnaire, and we have I think it's a 52 question questionnaire on our website. And athletes reach out to us and they express interest in coaching. They might tell us what their goals are or what they've struggled with, and we're like, awesome, let's have a conversation. But first, let's have you fill out this new athlete questionnaire. And the new athlete questionnaire is, well, we'll get into it in a minute. But then after we receive the new athlete questionnaire, we schedule a phone consultation, and then we'll dive into this. But then we from that phone consultation, then we designed the first 4 week training plan, and it's a day to day, like what to do, what not to do. It's power based, heart rate based, very detailed. A lot of the coaching emanates from the training plan. Like some of the, I'll digress here for a second. So some of the language we use over in the training plans, because everyone knows we're big on training plans. The thing about the problem with training plans is that they're really hard to follow verbatim, and they're not flexible, and you don't know what to do, and there's all these questions you may have evolved around them, and honestly they kind of need to be dynamic and evolve and change. And so what we say is the problem with training plans is they're hard to follow, but the best solution is coaching. And what a coaching really does is it we help athletes follow the training plan that we design, among other things. But that's a big part of what we do on the daily. Um, then we also construct an annual training plan. We analyze data from the training plan that you're following, that we tell you to do. We communicate with you various forms. We'll get into that. Of course, we'll talk about how often we analyze the data, at what frequency, and then, of course, at what level. How deep do we go? We'll talk about wearable data analysis that we provide as coaches, and then we'll talk about how the process works of like talking with athletes on a regular basis, and then what we talk about. And, super quick, it's what happened in the previous 4 weeks or 2 weeks. How did it go? Get your feedback, look at the data, and then have that conversation, use all that to design the next training plan within the confines of the annual training plan. And that's what we call rinse and repeat. And we do that. We deliver training plans to athletes every 4 weeks, a 4 week block. Oftentimes the first week or two of that block is really, really specific because we know exactly what we're going to do. And maybe you get out to week 3 or 4 and it's less specific, but at least we have a template for how we're going to go. And maybe we'll touch base on that in a week or two, depending on the level of coaching. But then that's kind of how it works on a monthly basis. But we'll also talk about like, what's the first 3 months like? What's the next 3 months? What's the next half year? And then really like, what's it like being coached as an athlete in year 1, year 2, and in year 3? And yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. So Isaiah, why don't you take us through the new athlete questionnaire and kind of how that works, like what we look for as coaches when we use that to have a conversation with an athlete.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I'll start with a question. When did you put together the first new athlete questionnaire? Like, what can you recall what year that was? Like, how long ago was that?
2022?
Okay,
No, sorry,
has to be earlier than that.
2002.
Yeah. I was
It's
gonna
like
say,
22
yeah,
years ago.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So a long time.
yeah.
And I think even over the 10 years that I've been at the company, like the questionnaire has evolved and changed and gotten better. And I think like originally it was very cryptic, and now we've kind of evolved it to be very pointed and cater to giving us a really nice holistic view of who the athlete is, both with what goals they're coming in with, and then also what their priorities are. Like what are the things in life they're scheduling, what their athletic background is, what maybe what coaching they've previously had, what they're looking for in a coach. On my side, the value of a new athlete questionnaire is it can help me source what they're looking for, and then which one of our coaches is best suited for that. And that could be, that could be everything. That could be personality. It could be experience. It could be even, age or other, I guess, guidelines as well. And all the above, it helps me kind of pick and choose. We have all of our coaches are strong suited across a really wide lens, but if I can be even more particular within that lens, then it's just going to be better. So that helps me. But then even further, the NAQ or the new athlete questionnaire allows the coach, when we talk about the consultation in a second, to use this knowledge to go into the conversation already having things that they really want to touch on. They know where that person is coming from, what their goals are, and it kind of helps us all of a sudden use this time frame for a new athlete consultation to touch on way more detailed things that otherwise we wouldn't be able to touch on. It's the difference between like, when you go onto a coaching website and they don't have anything and instead it's like contact us. It is always a little bit concerning to me because there's just so much that needs to be received ahead of time just to be sure that we're the right option and make sure that we can really help you to the full potential. And yeah, I mean, for me personally, and I know a lot of the other coaches speak to this as well, that having that information is everything in starting strongly with an athlete and not needing to ask what their schedule is out of the gate. Like, of course we touch on that, but on a much higher level. So it is a process. It is kind of painstaking. We've had a couple athletes tell us that it's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's worth it, and it's 100% valuable. And it goes from everything from being detailed on which coach you're asked to provided to work with, and then also how that kickoff relationship goes. So yeah, super valuable. I don't think it's possible to go without it, to be honest.
I don't think I could have a conversation or a valuable coaching consult without this questionnaire. I've come to rely on it. And so, listeners, you know, rather than spend 20 minutes on the phone, where are you from? Where, what are you training for? What are your goals? We just ask you up front, and we get that all in there. And there may be, there's a chance to say, like, here's my A races, here's what I'm training for, here's what I've struggled with in the past. That's the stuff we dive into on the coaching consultation. But yeah. I mean, I don't have all the questions in front of me, but we used to say, "What are you training for?" And when I designed it, 22 years ago, it was like coaching was really different back then, and the type of people that would hire coaches were much different than they are now. And it was either a young athlete trying to go pro, or it was a someone with a new power meter. And for the young pros, the question was, the questions were like this. It was really hardcore. We wouldn't ask these anymore, but they were things like, "What are you willing to do in order to improve?" And the selections were like, "Quit your job, move to a place with better weather." I think the other one was train more hours. Yeah, it was way different now. Now it's like, what are you willing to do to improve? It's like, well, that's our job, really. We're not asking you to make these major life changes.
Well, I remember like back when we had the brick and mortar location and we sold a lot of power meters. We used to have a question in the questionnaire of what power meters, or do you use a power meter, and what power meters do you have? Because it would be like Stages, Cork, SRM. Those were like the three that you could even select because or the power tap.
Yes.
And now you can't list them all. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of silly, but yeah, things have changed.
Yeah, back then we had to ask, what resources do you have? And we were hoping they had a power meter.
Yeah.
And now it's like, do you have for a while there it was like, do you have a smart trainer? Now it's like, it seems like everyone has that, just about.
Yeah.
But it's not required. But yeah, and if you don't have one, we can help talk you through it. We're our tech coaches as well, oftentimes, because it is overwhelming, and we can help save you all that internet research a lot of times. So yeah, that's like the new athlete questionnaire. Again, 52 questions. Honestly, we can tell who takes the time to, like, write thorough answers, and we can tell the athletes who rush through it. We get a lot of athletes that make us laugh, which is always welcome. But really, again, it's just a chance to have a much more productive consultation, which comes up next. So I'll explain this a little bit. So basically, the way that phone consultation works is we have had time to review your questionnaire. We've probably got 3 or 4 points that we want to dive in deeper to that we're going to ask you about. You may have had some questions. You may have emailed those to us. You may have shared your power data or your all your ride history with us. So we have reviewed that. I was riding with an athlete. It was actually Clavs, Isaiah. Last night, I made him not FTFP. Sorry about that. Um, but I was telling Clavs, I was like, the number one first thing I look at if we do have access to the athlete's data is I look at their performance manager chart. I look at peak CTLs. I look at the shape of the curve. I look at time frames of when their training load was going up, when it was going down, if that coincided with the right timing for their goal events. A lot of times we see a performance manager chart where it's just a flat like line and it just shows that athlete didn't periodize their training and it's like knock that out in month one of the coaching. Oftentimes we just see an opportunity to train more with just achieving higher training loads at just the right times in concentration with when their goals are. So the big questions are during the phone consultation are really what are you training for? Number one question, what are you training for? And then the next question is, when is that? And, there's a lot of permutations to that. And oftentimes athletes seek our help. Like I'm training for, let's use gravel for an example. I'm going to do Mid South and Unbound next year, and the Crusher, and I'll do Steamboat, and we can help them craft a plan for that. We can even, if unless an athlete says Unbound is my A race, we may help them figure out what are their A races. Like, is it the Mid South or Unbound? We can help them navigate expectations and performance goal setting. So we cover that in the first 30 minutes. We'll also cover how much time do you have to train? That's a big one. That's like a huge one, in fact. Like, and then where do you live? We know that already, but we talk about like we've reviewed their training history. We know, do you train indoors during the week? Do you train 100% outdoors? Is it a hybrid? Did you train too much indoors? We've reviewed that. Did you not? Does one have an opportunity for greater improvement from like doing endurance rides? So in the case of just doing a lot of structured workouts and 1 hour rides, we see that a lot. And then we look at time frames where maybe the athlete got sick or injured, and we talk about that and talk about a lot of limitations the athlete have or challenges, or really a lot of times those challenges and limitations are why athletes do hire a coach. It's like, help me overcome those. So we talk about that, and I generally, for those phone conversations, I don't know about you, Isaiah, I'll ask you in a second. I generally try to get a overarching game plan in my head going together of like, how can we help you, and what's the high level plan? Like, it's kind of like the back of the napkin type of thing. It's like, all right, we're gonna lift weights, we're gonna build your base, we're gonna do some intervals at this time frame, and this is my A race, and these are my B race. My season starts here, it ends here. Those are like the big time questions. I can train this much, and it's really also, I know Isaiah is going to say this, but it's really a great time to begin to form that coach athlete relationship, get to know each other. It's really I like to have a one-sided coach athlete relationship. I'll ask you a lot of questions, but I don't really want you to ask me how things are going. It's all about you. That's how I describe these the coach athlete relationship. Very one-sided. I mean, of course, we'll tell you about big life events, and of course how our bike racing is going and things like that. But we may not share details about the home Reno or you know, um, the stuff like that. Anyway, Isaiah, what's your perspective on that? The phone consultations. And
Yeah,
that, by the way, everyone, that's like just the first one. We should talk about what the phone consultations look like ongoing.
yeah. The initial consultation to me is everything. I totally agree with you. I mean, essentially, like my goal after a consultation is to hit the ground running. Like I have every detail I need to put everything into action and proceed. So like I know what they have going on in their life, like what stressors they have. Like, do they have kids? Do they have a busy schedule? Do they have, pickleball that they love to play twice a week? Like, what demands take root in their life, and what do I get to have the privilege with helping them navigate? And I think that's my ultimate goal. Then secondary, as Frank was alluding to, is like I want to get to know you. Like I want to have those small talk moments, and I definitely make time to get an idea of who that person is. Why? Because ultimately, for the next however indefinite period of time to pursue their goals and beyond, I'm going to be telling them what to do. So like I need to know what makes them tick, and what annoys them and what doesn't, and like yeah, like all of the confinements and constraints. I kind of go through the questionnaire. I star standouts to me that are important for me to touch on. And then I breeze through a lot of the stuff in the small talk. And then I go through it in depth into things that I know are most critical. So, like, if it's somebody that has a really hard schedule to juggle, then of course we spend a good majority on that. I want to hear about like past training, what they're looking to do, what they can allocate towards it, what they're comfortable with, what they're not. And then I also spend a good bit of time talking about concept. So not only do I want to be able to hit the ground running, I want them to be able to hit the ground running. So it's like really important that I lean on what are they going to be doing? So they have an idea and they have like, oh, all right, cool. I could do this. Like this is, I can lean on that. And then they, as Frank said, like you can't cover it all in an hour. You definitely can't cover it all in 30 minutes. So then, there's future calls to be had, of course, but it's like, all right, can both parties leave that collective union and be ready to go and check the punch card and then just start to make the boxes turn green? And I think that's like the big thing. So yeah, I think we agree.
Yeah. A lot of times I describe the working coach athlete relationship as a collaboration. And like really the best coach athlete successes come when you collaborate. It's like, what are our challenges? What are some creative training solutions that we come up with together to really just take your training to the next level? Like, is this a certain group ride you can do, or this interval workout, or is it this manipulation of your training schedule to fit in with your life to, XYZ? And so it's like, it's not one way, like us just sitting there, okay, do this, do that, do that. A lot of questions are asked. We're good question askers a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Like even half the time when I'm telling athletes what I think they should do, my question it usually comes about as a question. So I'll say like, okay, do you think this would be possible? Or is it possible for you to achieve this stimulus maybe this way? And then that's the collaboration part, because then they could say, oh, well, actually, I've got like this ride that I think could work for that, or maybe this group ride could work for that. I think it allows so much ownership, and I think we'll get to it later down the line. But I also think it's so much power to unlock that when you've been working with an athlete long term. So you might not achieve that collaboration in year one. I think that's kind of rare. Maybe if you just gel with that person perfectly, but like year two, year three, beyond, oh yeah. Like athletes I've been
Mhm.
working with for 10 plus years, like those athletes are half the time they're running half the training. I'm just giving them like key bits of advice, and it's awesome. It's just a different way of coaching. It's cool.
Yeah. And then one coaching technique we use is we ask questions and then we get a lot of yeses because it's like a leading question a
Yeah.
lot of times. And then just everyone beware, we'll slide in the can you ride 5 hours this weekend? And then it doesn't ever end. It's can you do Tabatas on Tuesday? That would be really great. So some coaching things to watch out for us sneaky coaches. We'll weave that in there.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of question asking and collaboration. I think right now would be a good chance to talk about like what those consultations look like. So that's like the first consultation. let's talk about the second one. Like the second. So one of the things we do with our coaching is we talk with our athletes regularly. It's an appointment, just like you have an appointment with your tax accountant. Not that we want to be compared to that, but just like you have an appointment with your doctor, or you go get a haircut, or go to your like child's soccer practice. It's scheduled, it's on a calendar, it's formal. We Years ago, it's like we like to have athletes in front of their training calendars, and then we're in front of ours. So these are not conversations while we're you know like running to meet our friends. It's like it, in the olden days we would meet at coffee shops with athletes, and then you'd have like this really productive meeting. But now everyone just wants to like make the most of their time, and all that. Once in a while we'll have like a coffee shop session for like maybe like the annual training plan thing, or a bike ride, which is always good because you can really hash out a lot in like a 3 hour ride. But month to month, or depending on the coaching level you're at, because some of our coaching levels we have bi-monthly, like every 2 weeks or even every week type of consultations. Those tend to be more granular, but like the every month phone call or video or Google Chat these days, it really just centers around how's it going. Can you give me some feedback? What's it like on your end that I don't tell me the stuff that I don't see in your power data or your ride data that I don't see in Strava? Like, how hard was it to do that interval workout from a scheduling standpoint? Do we need to adjust your rides from an hour and a half down to an hour? Just constant check in with that. And the other thing I like to talk with athletes about is I use the term crescendo, and I tell uh, uh, athletes a lot. Like in the off season, it's just like following the plan. We have more flexibility, but it's going to crescendo and get progressive, maybe a little more serious as we get closer to your A events. But I think I just like let that's like it's really hard to explain that in a training plan, but you can just talk through that.
Yeah, the big things that I like to lean on with each one of my athlete calls is past, present, or yeah, past, present, future. So I chunk out my calls that way. And past is the feedback part. So I usually start with what Frank said, like, how's it going? How are things going? How was the last training block? How have you been feeling? What else do you have going on in your life? Like, how's your dog doing? How's your family? Like that kind of stuff. Um, and that's great because that like gives us instantaneous feedback. I had a call today where I was talking to an athlete, and we're going through a workout that they did, and I walked them through what I learned from that workout and how that's going to affect this week's workout. So that's when the present comes into play of like looking ahead, immediate future. And I like to use the present and that immediate future as ways to speak to specificity or speak to technique or execution. So like how to do something that's like top of mind, like right ahead of us. Is there something important? Do they need to work on fueling? Like really get into the weeds. And then future is like future plan. And that way, again, I guess I'm big on this. Every time they leave the call, they know what the plan is. They know what's happening. They know what they're going to about to, go to battle for. And I think that I've learned over the years that that's so important that if they know what the next couple of weeks are going to be, or even the next couple of months, even if it's just a refresher, because we already did the whole ATP, which we'll get to in a second. It's important because we as athletes get so focused on just what the next pedal stroke is that we forget, like, heck, even when the next race is going to be. So, yeah, that tends to be how I chunk apart my calls. And, but always, always, always ask questions, as Frank said.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of what we do is teach athletes how to train. What Isaiah just mentioned about every athlete knows what to do at the end of the phone call moving forward. Also, helping them understand why they're doing that. The rationale is major, because when an athlete understands the rationale and the why, it just goes to overall higher quality of training and buy-in and motivation. And so we're teachers to some extent. And you can't really teach like through an email or like, hey, here's your training for the next 4 weeks. You teach verbally primarily. I don't know about you, but I mean, you could kind of type out an email, but I'd much rather uh, discuss it and hear that the athlete understands it or hear their question from what we're trying to convey.
And in my experience, a majority of our athletes are fairly go getter style people, but they're also really busy. They live a full life. So they don't have, like, sure, I can send an email with 30 different links that will walk you through how to do anything and everything that has to do with following a workout on your bicycle. But the amount of time that it takes to go through that is horrible. And most of our athletes aren't going to want to do that. So instead, that's what we are here for. And if we can get on the phone and I can say boom, 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 and then they'll be able to make it actionable, then perfect. Like that's half the win right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So rather than going down a like a YouTube rabbit hole, just yeah,
Yeah, they're
talk with
everywhere.
your
Yeah,
coach.
yeah, exactly. Yep, yep.
All right. So that's a new athlete questionnaire. That's the phone consultation. Let's talk about the first 4 week custom training plan, and then before we move on to the annual training plan. And so the first 4 week custom training plan. This is where we take the how's it going and understand your life and create that custom training plan. Everyone knows on the podcast we have like a working person's training plan design. Monday, Friday off, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, short structure, longer Saturday, Sunday on outside primarily. But a lot of times we know from the athlete that what if they're what if they're a nurse? What if they're a firefighter or a policeman or a pilot? How what's their schedule like? That's like the first thing. Like, do you work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, or what's your work schedule? Like, and so you design the training around their work schedule. A lot of times we have athletes, they're semi retired or fully retired. And we know that too. We know sometimes athletes are going to retire or they're they're enjoying a period of life where they can ride their bike a lot and we have a window because they're going to go back to work or something like that. But the point is, the first training plan is customized to the athletes the rest of their life. And like a great example is I have my son's soccer game 9 a.m. on Saturday. What are you going to do? Are you going to miss the group ride? Of course you're going to miss the group ride because we're going to design your training around that. We're not going to say you got to go to the group ride on Saturday when we know you have family obligations. Like the key to sustainability in this sport is sustain levels of training. So we're going to help come up with alternatives. Could be just a real quick example. Most group rides happen in the morning, and the real ones, that is. And then, there's Zwift group rides like 24/7, 365. That's an option. But there could be a group ride on Saturday, or I'm sorry, on Sunday. That's an alternative, or something like that. But we do weave in the group rides into your training. We help you prevent doing too many group rides, balance with structured training. We help you accidentally not do any group rides because we want you to work on your skills. But anyway, the custom training plan is just in 22 years of coaching. I've never designed. They're all from scratch. They require, for me, sometimes they require a fairly significant detail of creativity. Um, I use some of the same workouts, but no 4 week training plan for any athlete has ever been the same, ever. It's that customizable. Yes, I have my go-to workouts, 3x10 sweet spot, 2 sets, 5x1 minute on, 1 minute off, anaerobic, so forth. The OTS rides, that's one of my go-tos. Zone 2, but really it's how those all go together based on their life and crafting together all the variables, and then how that fits in with the annual training plan. Like, we're not going to have you do one style of training when it's not appropriate. It's all about the timing is everything for your phases. So we'll talk about the annual training plan in a minute, but I want to hear Isaiah's take on the custom training plan that he designs for his athletes?
I think it's one of the most fun parts of coaching, to me, at least. Um, you get the full spread. You're right. We have athletes that are at the liberty of a successful career, or they're kind of semi-retired or retired, and they are able to train like a pro. But honestly, like, some of the really fun athletes to work with are the ones that take really getting creative with their training, because your goal is, regardless of how hectic your life is, um, that you can find a sustainable pattern that allows you to progress forward. And that doesn't need to be, you know, massive leaps and bounds that aren't sustainable. It might mean that it's just small, tidbits that you can move forward with year after year after year. But it gets super fun. Like, I just got off the phone with an athlete that we are toying due to his schedule and his high work volume. This dude works an insane amount. We're toying with a 5-day string of workouts, and it's tough. It's a difficult thing to design, and it's a difficult thing to do. And going back to that collaboration, I've been working with him a while, and it's easy to be like, all right, we'll throw this into the mix, but this is a negative that could transpire. This is a negative that could transpire. And this is a positive and a positive and a positive. So these are the things we want to watch out for. And we'll try this, and then we'll learn and move. And it's a super fun way of coaching. It's not straightforward. It's not easy, but it's totally doable. And I think it's we were on an email thread together of an athlete who is going to be traveling a bunch. It's very spontaneous travel. He's not sure about it. He felt uncertain about it. And I think you and I both had the same gut reaction of like, no, this is something we've helped countless athletes manage, and it's hard. It's tough. It's not easy, but totally doable. And it is one of those things that sometimes actually 100% of the time, it just takes stepping back, checking yourself. Your coach might check yourself for you, and then give you an objective that is still sustainable and still achievable, even in like Taiwan or something like that. Like, it's doable. It's not always this perfect world, but to feel progression, feel stronger, feel faster, achieve your goals, like, that's worth it. So, yeah.
I was just thinking of Mr. Chad when you
Yeah.
you mentioned that, and I
Yeah.
can give Chad a shout out. So shout out Chad. I know Chad well enough, listeners. He sent us an email. He's like, I can't do this, traveling so much. And I know Chad. I'm like, Chad, don't be silly. Just, we need to talk. We need to change our style of coaching. You need to, so everyone, sometimes, so a lot of coaching occurs outside of the training plan. And this is an example. So a lot of times very, extremely dynamic lives, and they're reactive to work and life that's going on, and the stress of having a training plan in your face that you're not going to be able to follow it. So that's when we go, I call it concept coaching. And we're like, Chad, we're going to do some concept coaching with you. We're going to like brainstorm and collaborate every Monday. You're going to tell us your schedule if you know it, and we're going to give you 3 or 4 objectives for the week. This is the way I coach Phil Gaiman, everyone, because Phil is he's long enough in his cycling career. He's not down with following a training plan like a cyclist that's, it has nothing to do with pro and amateur. It just has to do with where they're at in their cycling. But so we talk about concepts. Let's ride 18 hours this week. Let's do this threshold workout in this much at this wattage, or how many group rides, endurance days, things like that. And then Phil can put together those pieces, and that's what we were teaching Chad is how to, like, look, try to get 7 hours of bike riding this week and 22 miles an hour. With this goal and this goal, here's your objectives. No training plan required. We'll still look at your data as it comes in. And, when we talk again next week, we'll see what happened. We'll get your feedback, and then we'll, develop another concept week going forward. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of it's not about the training plan. So everyone that's like on break right now, like with your off season break, this is like when the real coaching begins, not just the stuff that comes from the training plan. So it's more than just a training plan. As we're talking about the training, it just sometimes of the year, it's like, this is the best training plan ever. And other times of the year, it's like, we'll just ride this much this week and not that much that week, so forth.
Yeah, it's funny because people think that for whatever reason, it's like the professional um, who trains full time and that's their career. They need the best, most hands on, most scripted coaching. And that's not necessarily the case that I've learned. Sometimes those athletes are actually like the easiest to write a plan for. Um, Sometimes that gets thrown upside down when they get, they hit their roadblocks for sure because their career depends on it. But on the flip side, the more complicated somebody's life is, or the more variables at play, the more a coach can really make all the difference in the world. So I think it is kind of the opposite of what a lot of people think, which I've learned.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. The more complicated your life gets, that's when you need a coach even more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun fact, everyone, you can get through tough times in the work life balance as long as you stay consistent. And we can help you define what that consistency is. It could be mean, it could, you could be so crazy busy at work where you're used to riding 5 hours, sorry, 5 days a week. You can go down to 4 to 3 just to weather through, like a move across the country with your family, or like a big month at work. So, and then to know that we've done that, when and it doesn't have this much of an impact on your goals that are, let's say, for example, 4 months away. So yeah, that is the training plan, everyone. And so the reason why we can design a really good training plan is because we have an annual training plan. And so, also, all FasCat athletes listening, you probably just got your annual training plan from your coach that details out what your training looks like from September of this month now in 2024 to August of 2025. High level, we're going to do this in December and this in March and this in April. And it's bullet points. It's not a training calendar. But then it's like, we know when your A races are here and your B races are here and C here, and we're thinking about this, and maybe there's a training camp and a vacation in here. It's a riding vacation, but this vacation is not. And how do we navigate that? And my season starts this date and it ends on that date. That's like the question my athletes, I I ask them all the time, do you know when your first race is? And they're like, we don't know yet. And I add over and over, when's the first race? When's the first race? That I'm like a parrot, when it comes to that question. But that's the annual training plan. And the annual training plan is the guardrails that really define and determine what we're going to work on and when on the 4 week training calendar.
Yeah, I always define it as a high level view of the year to come, and it's works as a good collaborator between the coach and the athlete. Um, it does take some work. There is, it's important for the coach to be the parrot and get the key markers that need to be thrown into the mix. But yeah, I think I use it as a reminder of other things in the future. So what's to come, what races are key and important for that athlete. When super critical builds are, it's one thing if everything is just super simple, super clean, 3 week on, 1 week off, ta-da kind of builds, but it never works that way. So it's better to really chart out ahead of time and be like, okay, if we miss this build, we are missing a big chunk of fitness that we can really achieve. And I think that reminder or that inclusion, again, to go back to like a collaboration, for the athlete to see that ahead of time is a big step forward, and can just get the athlete just pumped and aligned on the entire year moving forward. So yeah, it's I think it's a big thing at practice. It's a constant evolving thing, which can be difficult, and I think why a lot of coaches let it go or don't use it. Um, but I do think it's worth its time and energy, and its practice, and even a check in back on it a couple times a year too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's like Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face, and we can you know, design. I could lay out a custom year long training calendar day to day. Like, here's what I think you should do, but guaranteed that's not what we're gonna do based on what's happening. So that's where the ATP comes in. It's the high level bulleted point that helps. Yeah, it helps you. Yeah, just know what to do on a monthly basis, and it changes too. Your A race may change from one to another. You may break your collarbone, and that then you got to move things around. That's a great reason to have a coach, because if you're left to figure that out yourself, it gets overwhelming, and it's always nice to have someone that's got your back. But yeah, we know it's motivating for athletes to know when they're going to be on form, perhaps when they're going to be doing intervals, when they're going to be doing long rides, when they can knock their training out indoors, when they need to concentrate on the long gravel simulations, for example. All those things I call it advanced planning, and when you advance plan, the better you do it, the easier it is to execute as you go through it.
Other thing I think it provides is it allows the athlete the ability to relax. So,
Yeah.
like for example, I did an ATP for an athlete that's training for the Leadville stage race, and by charting that far out in advance, I was able to show them that we essentially have 2 months to play with, that we can do what we want with because of how far out their goals are. And of course, there's other ways of putting in milestones earlier to target and so on and so forth. But I think it allows the athlete to say it's go time or it's not, which is, as we all know, such a massive thing to be able to do for an athlete mentally.
Yeah. I use the phrase it's monk mode.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're going into monk mode 6 weeks before your A event. And monk mode means no kitchen remodels. We'll get down in the nitty gritty, like maybe you don't mow your lawn on Saturday after your big event. Try not to miss any of your training. Don't take on any crazy work projects, things like that. But to know, if you tell an athlete, hey, by the way, you're in monk mode, you really shouldn't go on vacation, they'll be like, what? You got to tell them that 6 months in advance. Like, this is go time, and this is the time of your training when it really matters the most. All the training that leads up to that time frame is important, but this is when you're really going to cash in and capitalize and realize your goals. So it just helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone, that's the annual training plan. That's how the annual training plan helps us design the 4-week blocks of training. Let's talk about data analysis. Let's talk about power data analysis, how we handle data, how frequently we look at it for our athletes, what level of depth we go into that analysis. This is a large chunk of what we do as coaches these days. It's so much. Like, I can see everything an athlete does and does not do. I can see, and it's not Big Brother. That's not what we're doing, although it is. We can see if you like. I'll pick on Phil a little bit because he knows, because we've had these conversations. But Phil, I'll say go for a 5-hour ride, but in the middle of his 5-hour ride, he takes an hour-long coffee stop. I'm like, Phil, what's going on? He's like, I'm having a coffee. And I'm like, it's not the same physiologically. He's like, what do you mean? I rode 5 hours. I'm like, it's not. And so then I explained why, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I get it." But this is a conversation we had like 10 years ago. But the power data is enormous. It's really difficult to coach a rider without power or heart rate data. I don't think I've done that in years. Maybe we'll tell an athlete to go out and ride and don't record their data or don't use a bike computer, but it's really not that common. What gets challenging is when you go to the gym or you ride Peloton or you cross train. We are going to tell you how to record your data when you cross train. It's not that hard. It's really easy. You get this these days with Apple watches and smart watches, and we'll have athletes put their bike computers in their pocket when they go cross country skiing, something like that. But yeah, the data analysis, it's like our bread and butter, it's our jam, and that's what we'd like to talk about. So yeah, tell me what's your like, yeah, share with us your take on data analysis, Isaiah.
Yeah, it's funny because like I actually think that this line item, as far as like just in general data analysis, should be also included um, right behind, I would say, the phone consultation as well. So like once we do the phone consultation, that is when I absolutely destroy like every athlete's data that I can possibly get my hands on. And I think what's always so fascinating is how messy the data is. So messy. And I'll spend, depending on the athlete, like, I mean, you remember when we were doing data analysis for human powered health, like I spent hours cleaning up those, that like the women's, the world tour athletes' data,
Yeah.
because sometimes that's just not top of mind, or priorities for certain coaches. So regardless, that's always something that, you want to lean on, because not all data is good data, and noise isn't always good noise. And it's like if you're listening to 7 songs at the same time, it's probably not going to be that pleasant. But if you're listening to one song that is clean and like sounds nice, then it's nice to listen to. And without getting too geeky on this, like we spend all day, every day, looking at data outside of phone calls. And even when I'm on phone calls, I'm looking at data. So it's kind of like almost like the process of life that I live, or that we live. And um, I think it's so cool because it can really aid any direction you need it to go. So, like for example, when an athlete walks through the door, it allows you to get to know who they are without actually, like back in the day, it would have been like throwing an effort at them, see what their split was. They come back, you hear their time, and then you're like, all right, well, let's see if we can beat it again next time. And now we've progressed so far forward that you can see everything. You can see demands. You can see you can see CDA. You can see moving, rolling CDA on the road. I can dive in and view what corners they did on the route. I can parallel that with wind. I can match that obviously with power overlay, heart rate overlay. I can see everything from like, I mean, there's like you do pulse ox, you could do glucose, you could like anything and everything you can dive into. I think more than often than not, it's the staples that we lean on. So it's going to be heart rate and power. Like those are always the given that we really lean hard on. And then I kind of say we would use the flares and the bells and the whistles to add even more value where and when we need it. So there's going to be times where I'm sure like Frank looks at his 3x10 sweet spot and says like power perfect, like literally nailed it, like right at that 97%, boom. Heart rate nice and low, like yes. And then that's all you really need from it. And that athlete like literally executed. And then Frank's going to say, okay, cool, sweet. Now I can move on. Now we can pump that training plan up even more because they are adapted to that stress. And then there's times where like we need to look at an effort and we're like, all right, well, what happened here? They nailed the first 3 minutes and then just tanked after every single one. And I can see that, okay, maybe their body was overheated. Temperature was at the 80-degree mark. Heart rate was elevated all the way through the ride. Maybe there's some other stress. Like basically, you can just go all in on the weeds. But I think like the big thing is find the staples and then extrapolate details where and where you need it. But I mean, as far as how often we do this, why we do it to really aid and maximize every athlete's training and adaptation that they can receive. It's a really powerful thing that cycling brings about that not every sport has. Like running, for example, it just doesn't have this stuff. So you do have to lean more on RPE versus cycling, where sure, RPE is a big factor, but we can have other things to back that up as well. And with an athlete that's brand new to the sport, to have that tool is just massive. When we do it, depends on our coaching package. We do it for the upper tier athletes. We do it every single day. Data comes in, goal is to kind of grab it, look at it, say, sweet, that's like, this is what we want. The other thing that really transpires with data by, a really on it coach is going to be, not only are they going to look at the data, but they're going to use that to aid train forward. So they might even say, okay, I got this data on Tuesday. That'll change literally what we do for Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's super powerful. Other athletes like that, are a little bit maybe at our chase and hunt level, like they're going to be receiving it several times a week or once a week. And it's the same process though. It's the same level of detail. And I really push our coaches to do that and lean hard so that we can, continue to develop athletes forward. At the very upper tier for our athletes, we really push our coaches to go the extra level, to really push it forward and plan and lean hard. But it's important though that that's applied across all athletes because it's just so valuable.
Yeah. So what Isaiah mentioned there, everyone, is our catch level coaching is like our top tier coaching program, and we call it real time power analysis. So you'll go do your workout on Wednesday. We'll analyze it before you go do your workout on Wednesday to give you feedback and possible micro adjustments for what to do. And this is especially important when we're really pushing you physically, and it's really important to be in tune with how you're recovering, and then how well you can do the workouts, because we want to give you challenging workouts that you can just achieve, but we don't want to prescribe training that's so difficult that it's just dumb. You can't, it's like, you can't do it the day before and you're just like, that's demoralizing. And that's the worst thing in the world, is like, my coach is killing me and they don't know what I'm doing and I can't do the work. And anyway, that's what that really close those are called monitoring training, and through the data. And then it could even mean, check in with the athlete. Sometimes you might want to find out what's going on more than the data. And you might just a quick phone call. Hey, what's going on? It's like, oh, my dog died and bumming. I didn't sleep at all last night. And that's like, we'll take that in and be like, okay, let's do this revision, that sort of thing. But that's what Isaiah is talking about there. The other part of data that struck me while you were talking, Isaiah, is so that's your ride data, is power, heart rate, GPS. We see all of that. There's other kinds of data that we as coaches take in that's, you may not think of it like we do, but it's like, what did you eat? What's your nutrition like? What's your sleep and HRV? That's like a really big one. How's your recovery? And so we do wearable data analysis. It's mostly covered by Coach Cap, because we look at your sleep and HRV, how that balances out with your stress. Are you red, green, yellow? Do you need a recovery day, so forth. The training plan mostly takes care of that. It's by and large, but we'll look at trends. So how's your 7-day sleep trend? How's your HRV trending on a weekly, monthly, half year basis? That's generally how we factor in the wearable data. But also back to the nutrition. I wouldn't exactly say it's like data per se, but we can get into the weeds. How much did you eat? Why did you bonk? Why did you maybe weren't able to finish that fourth interval? Did you fuel your ride properly? So we can ask those questions, but it's also oftentimes a better discussion of nutritional strategies. The other thing that just occurred to me, Isaiah, there's a lot of sports psychology applied during these phone calls.
Oh
You
yeah.
guys, you gals, you don't know it because we're asking you questions. That's all you think that's going on, but really, we got our tricks. And a lot of times, I tell um, the coaches is we can your tone. We're reading your tone. We're reading your enthusiasm, your motivation. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you not really down with the training? We're reading all of that. And you can't do that online on the internet. Data doesn't really tell you that. If sent in your workout and you didn't really do that well with your threshold intervals and you're like, this sucked, that's actually really good communication. Because then we're going to be like, well, why? And, it's just like the psychologist, why do you feel that way? But I always say data is great, but data plus your feedback is even better. And we recorded a podcast, gosh, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, how to leave feedback to your coach with your data. I'll have to go back and dig up that episode and share it with everyone because it's really, really important. Again, we're teachers, so we like to tell you what to say. Like we don't need to know your life story of the workout and all that, but we like to know the key things of how do you feel? Really good. And it's like three ways. I felt good, great. Oh, sorry. No, it's I felt great, I felt bad, I felt like I normally do. Like red, green, orange. Like that's what I like for my athletes to tell me. But any challenges, what the weather was like, if that got in the way, if you got a flat tire, so forth, so forth. Like, but when an athlete says they send back the power file and the wattage is like way higher than what they're normally doing, and then when they say, dude, I smashed this, it's like, yes. And it's we're gonna get that from the data, but it's great to hear it from you too. So I also say to athletes, I'm not a mind reader. We cannot read your mind. We're psychologists, but we still need to hear it from you. So we either hear it from you or we're going to ask you. So be ready to answer. I kind of went on a tangent there. They didn't have anything to do with data, but it's all interconnected, and that's what we do. So I think you hit on the frequency of data. One thing I want to just emphasize is like 15 years ago, maybe in the early 80s, there was that TV commercial. I can't remember what it was. It's 10 a.m. on a Saturday night. Do you know where your teenager is? Do you remember that, Isaiah? I don't know
No.
if you're.
No.
It,
But your memory
yeah,
for these are always really impressive to me. So
but the coaching meme is it's 10 a.m. on Monday morning. Do you know where your coach is? At FasCat, your coach is behind their laptop analyzing your power data. That's what we do. We get started oftentimes on Sunday afternoon because the biggest batch of data comes in from the weekend. We do try, as coaches, we do try to take the weekend off. I made a rule a long time ago. I don't analyze power data on a Saturday unless you win the race, and I'm like so excited when I look at the data. But we do get started oftentimes on Sunday afternoon, evening, and then it just continues all day on Monday. Um, Looking at data, asking you questions, using that to tell you what to do next with regards to training plan revisions, setting up calls, and really just doing a lot of communicating, giving feedback, letting you know if you improved, letting you know if you did it right, asking questions, revising plans. But that's what the data enables us to do. It shows us everything you've done. Are you getting faster? Are you staying the same? So forth, and then helps us use the sports science to help determine what's the best course of action to keep telling you what to do and letting you know what to do next. Um, all right. Well, so this is turning into a good long podcast, but let's let's talk about the difference between the first 3 months, the next 3 months, and then the second half of the year, Isaiah.
yeah, I was excited to talk about this. I think the really cool thing about so like first 3 months, you almost want to see this as like you're just getting to know each other. You really are. And sure, there are actionable things that can really occur, but they're always going to be surface level. Like if you hire a coach and you have 3 months to your goal, all right, great. You're going to get 3 months of like optimization, but it's always, always, always going to be just partial. Like there's no coach out there that is going to be so able to pick up on exactly what makes you tick as an athlete that they can make it happen at its maximum in 3 months. Not possible. So that can be surface level, but it's how everything gets set in motion. Like you figure out how to work together, you figure out your communication patterns, you figure out who the athlete is and how they respond. And then after that, you get into this kind of like sweet spot period of like kind of the honeymoon where it's you've kind of figured out who the athlete is. The athlete's figured out how you tick as well. And then you start just kind of jiving. You really start ticking things off. Things are smooth. You should have their schedule totally dialed by that point. And communication usually is pretty good. Stoke is high, and you're seeing responses like really start to take place. So it's a pretty exciting period as a coach. And then like within that first year though, at no point are you like probably not learning something about execution of that particular coach's methodology or workouts or how they would like you to train or guidances towards those endeavors. So it's a super critical period of time, but it always, I will say, like, we were talking about athlete coach kind of dynamics of collaboration, but I don't know if that rarely occurs in the first year. It's really kind of after that point, it's a little bit more one way. And then that year two is when, you've taken that compiled amount of energy and time working together, and you can learn from that first year and then really apply it on the second year. And this is usually when coach is able to say, this is exactly the outcome that we can expect and we will achieve it. And that's usually when that coach actually might be right, compared to if they make that suggestion in the first year, they're probably scrapping at bones there. And then those things do tend to transpire in the second year if things are managed correctly. And then it just continues to get better and better year after year, because then if the coach is on their A game, they every single year, not only are they learning from that singular year, they're learning from the years prior. And then there isn't this like, we were talking about the coach being a psychiatrist as well. When you have the first call with somebody, you're probably not going to tell them your like deepest, darkest secrets that are your biggest weakness or your biggest fear with training or racing or athletics or whatever it might be. But like, guess what? You probably might 3 years into working somebody or 5 years in. I mean, everyone has their different timeline, but I talked to a coach or an athlete the other day that their prior coach, they really couldn't have that open dialogue with them, and my first response was, all right, great. Let's see if we can achieve that. And I'm not the type of person that would say, all right, well, you're going to achieve it with me. Like, I can't promise anything. Like, everyone has their, we're all people after all. We all have our own personalities, but I think those are a really healthy process and a timeline to really want to see and achieve for an athlete and a coach. Like it's empowering. And I think there is a tipping point when you've been working with an athlete for so long that you do have to reinvent the wheel a little bit. And that's also a really healthy thing to have transpire. But yeah, it's only the first year is just scratching the surface. It really, really is. And the 3 months is like just an inch of that. So
It's like super quick. Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. Yeah. That's really well spoken, everyone. I like to tell athletes, the first year is about learning how to train. The second year is executing and capitalizing on that learning. And like really the third year is you've made mistakes, you've learned, and then really, really achieving goals. So like say, for example, you're an Unbound athlete or you're Leadville. So like year one, let Unbound, you've never done it before. We're going to share as much of our knowledge about Unbound as we can. Isaiah's done it. Our coaches have done it. We've coached dozens of athletes that have done it, and we're going to prepare you as best as we can. We're going to teach you how to train. But guess what? There's nothing, there's no substitute for going out and doing it and having done it and experienced it and learned from that. We're going to talk with you about that. What did you learn? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? And guess what? We're going to make darn sure you apply that next year for year two. We're going to look at the macro, what training worked in that year leading up to Unbound, what we think didn't work. We're going to subtract that out of year two. We're going to add more of the stuff that worked in year two from year one, and really try to, this is the optimization of your annual training plan. We're going to know roadblocks that are, 3 months in advance. Like, hey, do you remember when you got really busy at work in February and we were thinking about doing that B race to start the season? Well, in year two, we're going to suggest you don't do that. Yeah, because we help you prevent roadblocks or landmines. So that's what we do, because we're learning too. We're learning about you. And then in year three, it's, say you've gone back, you've done Unbound 2 years in a row. First year, you did this. Here was your performance. Here was your data from it. This training load. Year two, we got a little bit higher training load, and your power was this much higher accordingly, and this part of the year was going super great, and this part of the year is some challenges. So we're gonna, when we go into the goal setting phase in between year two and before year three, now we have all this knowledge of, like, here's what works for said athlete, here's what doesn't work. We're gonna help you essentially do more of what works, do less of what doesn't, really navigate all the challenges, but like super hone it in for year three. And it just goes on like that. And, I coach athletes. Isaiah coaches athletes. He's coached for years and years and years. And honestly, it becomes less about the day-to-day training, because that's just automatic by now. I mean, of course, we're designing training plans and everything, but then it's like this super high level planning, collaboration, creativity that Isaiah talked about, and also even more psychology and motivation, and just kind of making sure it's our job to prepare you the best and help you achieve your goals. And it really, we tell athletes, like, your job to do the work on the bike, that is, and collaborate with us, but it's our job to deliver you the results and just give you creative solutions to do that. So that's kind of, that happens. It's not like it doesn't happen in year one, or, things that happen in year three don't happen in year two. It's a fluid situation, but that's generally the evolution of a coaching relationship over like 3 years, as an example. Isaiah is nodding his head because we're pretty much at the end of our podcast. Well, I think we covered a lot. Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, this is good. I think it's there's a lot in this, and it takes work and it takes time, but it's a pretty cool thing to watch evolve as well. It's pretty rewarding, actually, selfishly.
It's the greatest job in the world.
Yeah.
What we have on our website, we have like a mission statement and our values. I think our core value number one is, when you enrich the lives of others, you enrich your own. And that's the thing that kind of got me into coaching, has kept me here all those years. So I really like helping people. I like helping people with science. Obviously, I like helping cyclists with science, and coaching is like amazing to do that. So yeah, if you all have, if we struck a chord with anything we said, if you have questions about coaching or whatever, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We live on email, just like we do with data. So hit us up, and we'd love to help you or listen to what your goals are. We're going to give you our thoughts. We're also going to just send you the link to fill out that new athlete questionnaire if it gets to it. If you're a coached athlete already, if you're a FasCat athlete already, and we said anything, talk with your coach about it. Chances are they'll dive deeper into what you heard, what you want to dive deeper into. And and if you, let's see. So that's how we covered kind of how like you hire a coach at FastCat, which if you'd like to, we'd love to talk with you about that. One of the problems of coaching, and I've been very upfront with this over the years because we're big on training plans. One of the problems of coaching is it is expensive and it's a commitment. And the other problem with coaching is it does take time. And because Isaiah was talking about, you just can't really get it done in 3 months. And we generally don't really coach people for just 3 months. 6 months is really about as short as we go, and honestly, we don't even really prefer that. 8 months is like the go-to, but honestly, when we talk with you with an athlete, we're like, can you like commit to 2 years worth of coaching because we're really going to knock it out of the park. Longer is better. But back to the problem of coaching is it's expensive and it takes time to work. And so I want to tie this all the way back to Coach Cat a little bit because, and we believe there's two ways to get faster. And like the technology we're developing, we mentioned the problem with a training plan is following it. You got to hire a coach to do it. But everyone knows we've been pushing Coach Cat. And so the single greatest way to improve is to follow a training plan. You can either hire a coach to do that and get a custom plan, or you can, go through our custom training plan builder. And then you can use a real coach to help you follow it, or you can use Coach Cat to help you with your plan revisions, custom workouts. You can ask Coach Cat all sorts of questions. We don't not stand behind that. So we as coaches, guess what? We're in customer service, and you can talk to Coach Justin if you'd like as a part of your new trial as well. So even though you're using Coach Cat, you're using AI. We're also like if you don't get the answer you like from Coach Cat, we're just reach out to us. We're in the chat box in the upper right of the app. But either way, we provide two ways to help you ride faster. And what we just talked about a lot is just the one-on-one coaching. It's the ultimate solution to really helping you achieve your goals. So hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks so much, Isaiah, for being here.
Of course, my pleasure.
Yeah. And everyone, yeah, you know what to do. Work hard, ride fast, have fun, try to follow that training plan, tell your coach how you're feeling. And remember, consistency is the new FTFP. So thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you back here next week.